New Mexico is a land of stories, myths, and legends. The unexplained and the unexplored. I'm Chad Brummett, and we are exploring the unique and unusual world of New Mexico Strange.
Hello and welcome to this episode of New Mexico Strange. I'm Chad Brummett. Thank you for joining us. And today we're kind of unpacking a couple of different stories. Usually we kind of focus on just one story, but as our guest today, Mr. Ben Radford, managing editor, Skeptical Inquirer, podcast host of Squaring the Strange, author of Mysterious New Mexico, Bad Clowns, Chupacabra, you name it. First of all, thanks for being with us. Glad that you were back and glad to be talking about this. We're going to start off today with something that I think a lot of people maybe outside New Mexico, when they think of New Mexico, they think of UFOs, right? They'll think of Roswell. They'll think of, maybe if they're more versed in it, maybe the Aztec UFO crash or Socorro had an incident.
Right.
You're bringing something to the table that I was not aware of, which was an alleged secret UFO base.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I know,
this
right?
This is new to me. I'm excited about this.
Well, that's one of the cool things about New Mexico, as I said, is that there's so much weird stuff out there, and like you think you know everything about it because you've lived here all your life or my life, and then all of a sudden someone's like, what about that? So I'm like, hold on, what is that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Especially because when you hear UFO, like you and I both being native New Mexicans,
Right.
when someone talks about it, we're instantly going to think,
Right.
oh, you're going about this, you're going about that.
Exactly.
So how did you uncover this? Where did you find this information?
So actually, this is sort of a roundabout way. So I had attended the Roswell anniversary. I think it was the 40th anniversary of the crash-ish. I'll say that for the incident, right?
There you go.
And at that time, it was went to Roswell, and it was kind of cool. I bought the alien hat and had the alien hamburgers and this and that, lots of green chili. And as I was going through all the stalls and stuff like that, I came across somebody who was selling his book on the Dulce alien base. I'm like, Dulce, is this sweets? He's like, no, man. He's like, yeah, up in Dulce, there's a top secret alien base. I'm like, do tell.
What?
So I bought his book because, whatever, had him autograph it because, and it was funny because for a lot of these guys, like if you show an interest, they lock on. It's like, oh my
absolutely.
God. Yeah. It's like everyone else is passing him by. It's like, we got a sucker. We have a customer here.
The correction. Yeah.
Whatever. We have someone who will listen to his story.
Exactly.
He said advisedly. So I'm like, oh yeah. So tell me all about it. So meanwhile, I'm taking notes because again, this was new to me, and this is 10, 12 years ago or something. So I had never heard of it, even. Again, growing up here and being into the investigations and weird stuff. He's like, yeah. So he's like, a cousin of mine lives up there. And it's always like the cousin. It's like this, the third cousin twice removed. Like, I know a guy who knows a guy.
They have never seen it firsthand.
Right.
It's always someone else's testimony.
Exactly. So as a folklorist, red flags everywhere.
Sure.
But whatever, right? So, so basically the story is that there is an underground base in the mountains outside of Dulce in northern New Mexico.
Okay.
And so I was talking to him. I was like, well, I said, I just bought his book for $20, whatever. It was like, well, tell me about it. I mean, you're here in front of me. So he's like, yeah. So he says, yeah, there's this whole top secret base underneath the mountains. And I'm like, that's plausible. I mean,
sure.
That
we have those in the United States. They may not deal with aliens.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, the idea that the government would have a base inside a mountain is fairly plausible. In fact, it is a fact.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
That is a known thing. But he went beyond that to say, well, so this is where it's not just top secret stuff there. And of course, I'm going back to Area 51. I'm going back to Hangar 18, 13, all these stories in media that sort of latch into these sorts of things. And he's like, well, no, what happens is, and so he opened up his book and he showed me a diagram, and it looked like you remember like the James Bond films in like the 80s and 90s where there'd be like a volcano, right? So the volcano opens up and James Bond goes down the Blofeld
right.
And there's like 45, stories of, evil stuff that they do, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, so he shows me this diagram, and it's all very it's all written down. It's like it's looking very officious, right? He's like, yeah, well, there's these 7 different levels, and he's like, so on this level they do mind control, and then on this level this is where they meet the aliens. I'm thinking, okay, go on, right? So it's got cryogenic experiments, we got genetic experiments, alien autopsies. It's this kitchen sink of like
everything you hear about these. I mean, you even
Right.
see some of this. You hear about it with the alien autopsy. There
Right.
was the video of it.
Right.
The cryogenic chamber. I think there was a version of that in Independence Day or
Yes.
something.
Yes, exactly.
So it really kind of sounds like an amalgam of these different ideas of what would happen in an alien, like a secret hangar, like in Area 51.
Right. And so he starts talking about, and again, he's presenting all this as like factuals, like obviously,
Right.
we know these are there. I'm like, okay. So he's like, there's different types of aliens, of course. There's reptilians and the grays. So the
And he's just saying this all matter of fact.
yeah, like, well, as we all know,
Sure. Okay.
according to Wikipedia, right? So there's the Greys and the reptilians, and he's got this whole cosmology of how the reptilians are. Again, this is straight out of like the Sci-Fi Channel. I mean, and it's like, with all due respect, I love sci-fi. We all love horror sci-fi, but it's like, to him, it's all like, yeah, this is the thing. So he's giving this very intricate, detailed explanations of the different types of aliens, and he's like, well, you have to understand, this is where they all meet. So when there are high level meetings, and by high level we're talking universal,
This like an episode or like something out of Men in Black.
right?
Like you think of the Men in Black headquarters.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the idea is that they would have these meetings. So he didn't tell me how often they occur because maybe he's not allowed to divulge that. But allegedly on a regular basis, they have the aliens, the reptilians and the Greys, and what's apparently the U.S. government all meeting in a room, and they talk about alien things. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, diplomacy or
Yeah, I don't know what the agenda is. Twinkies or the Kardashians. I would be curious to know.
Absolutely, I think we'd all like to be a fly on the wall.
So he's telling me the whole thing, and he's like, yeah, and I was like, well, this is interesting. I said, sort of diplomatically. He's like, how do you know this? He's like, well, here's the thing. So this guy that he was actually involved in building the alien base. And he's talking about in this book, this guy, Phil Schneider, I think was his name, and he was allegedly, I think he's a worker architect or something. He said he had some role in building the base, and he described a battle, like a firefight, like a gunfight with lasers or whatever it is they're using, and he said that several people were killed. In this battle, a couple of aliens were killed, and so there's bodies there.
This happened at the base?
Yes.
Okay.
That was his story.
Okay.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is getting more interesting. And by the way, I mean, if this is true, then there should be records of this. I mean, this would be a government employee was killed, or a member of the DOD. I mean, I don't know, but if the aliens killed, government employees, there should be some record of this, right?
Yeah, if there was all of a sudden, at the very least, if they tried to cover it up, these families, where are their loved ones? They're missing loved ones.
You would think that would be the case. And part of the problem here is that it is Native American land. They can control who goes on their land, and they may not want a bunch of UFO hunters crawling around the mountain. Mm-hmm. So again, anytime that when you have that sort of information vacuum, it tends to sort of foment these conspiracy theories. So I said, okay, well, that's fine. I said, well, how many people work at this? He's like, oh, thousands and thousands. It's a huge base. So I said, well, where do they live?
Right.
I mean, workers at Los Alamos and Sandia Labs. I mean, I have friends who work there.
Sure.
I know where they live. Mm-hmm. I don't mean that threateningly, but they don't live underground, in a base.
You can account for them when they are not at work.
Exactly. Right. Thank you. So I said, well, so where you have these thousands and thousands of government workers who are presumably doing mind control experiments and hanging out with aliens. I don't know what they're doing. Where are they? And they go, oh yeah, they're all underneath the the mountain.
So they all live under the mountain.
Right. So I'm thinking trolls or something.
Right.
And again, I'm trying to be, I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense. Like,
Right.
well, I don't believe that these workers and their families, we're talking thousands and thousands of people, live underneath a mountain in Dulce, New Mexico, and don't come out. Where do they go to school? How do they get their food? Right. And it was interesting because he'd never thought of that. And it wasn't like a gotcha thing. Like, oh, what about that? I'm like,
But the logistical, where are they coming from? Yeah.
Just logistically, how are they getting to and from work? And is it fair to their families who, like, you marry a guy that works there and suddenly you have to live under a mountain in northern New Mexico for decades?
Yeah. And it's also, as you said, potentially kind of disappearing off the radar, because even when you talk about Area 51 and you read about, when it first started, these people that would have to take buses or they would take planes, that the windows are shuttered so that they wouldn't, they didn't necessarily know how they were getting to Groom Lake in Area 51.
Right.
But there was document they lived somewhere. They may not be able to talk about what they're doing,
right?
But they checked in and checked out, almost like an episode of Severance or something.
They're real people,
right? That they sever as they leave and come back in. Sure,
exactly.
Yeah, but you bring up a good point with this too, and a lot of times thinking about various conspiracy theories is that sometimes when you start looking at the mundane details, okay, if just looking at the basic calculus of it. Where are they living? That something that small can potentially unravel a conspiracy theory, or at least call into question. I haven't seen it. Maybe there is, but it does definitely seem to be. Well, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered to prove this is true.
Yeah, and it's just something as basic as let's just assume this is true. Like, where are the roads?
Right.
How do supplies get in?
Yeah.
It's all underground. Well, it can't all be underground.
Or is the entrance somewhere like in Colorado
or
and
China?
that they're getting in
middle through their teleportation. Again, it's just one of those things where you see these dramatic videos and YouTube videos and books and all these dramatic claims, and you go to UFO conferences, as I have, and they get on stage and they're talking about their amazing research. Then I'll be in a room and I'll be like, anybody else think this is weird?
And notice this glaring omission of detail?
Right. Like, we all agree it's weird, but it's like everyone's just nodding and saying how cool this is. I'm like, I have a question.
Yeah.
How does this work? And of course, it's always like, well, it's all top secret. Saying something is top secret doesn't explain how supplies get in and out. It doesn't explain why in the world anybody would sign up to be part of this top secret subterranean experiment.
Right.
So again, it's what I say. And again, there's just no evidence for this. As cool as it would be.
Yeah. Like, it makes for a really interesting story, I think. Absolutely. And New Mexico is ripe with those. Now, speaking of conspiracy theories, kind of dovetailing into the next topic of conversation, as you said, sometimes when there is a vacuum of information, it's kind of filled up with conjecture and, someone going, when there could very well be a very pedestrian, very boring explanation to something.
People don't like boring explanations.
No, we want to go to the aliens, or we want to go to some sort of supernatural cause.
Right.
And something you were telling me about, again, this is another incident that happened in New Mexico I was unaware of. I think it was like, I sort of remember hearing about it, but it didn't really register on the radar. And that was an incident where someone had found a number of dead elk in New Mexico.
Yes.
And this, again, anyone that has heard a story of, cattle mutilation, or it's either aliens or chupacabra or something like that. So we kind of had a similar incident, but involving elk.
Yeah. So, anytime you have large numbers of animals that are either dead or acting weird, it's naturally fascinating, right? I mean, there's the legends of the lemmings, right? They were lemmings fall suicide off cliffs. I don't think that's actually true. Speaking of which, but yeah, so you have bird strikes. You have cases where there will be birds that will plummet into the ground. I've written about this, where it's very mysterious, like horrific scene where someone came out and they found, I think, hundreds of birds just like dead on the ground and dying on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
And you're like, what's going on here? In that particular case, as I recall, there was a fog, and there was something about the optics where the birds thought the sun was basically they were off kilter. So they thought they were flying into the sky. They're actually flying into the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So
wow.
And
they got that turned around.
A rare case, but yeah, these things happen. All these weird situations where what the hell's going on here? So yeah, this was a case in 2013, and a hunter north of Las Vegas, New Mexico, came across over 100 dead elk just lying on the ground. You don't see that. I mean, like it's like you might see one or two. Maybe they're attacked by a predator or shot, or it was on this huge 75,000 acre ranch. Didn't know what to make of it, and it just got stranger and stranger the more he looked, because none of them had really had marks on them, right? So you would expect out in the wilderness, you have an animal that's been attacked. Maybe its throat is ripped out. Yeah, something. And of course, this happened with the chupacabra cases that I researched for my book. You would expect, like, what killed them, right? They're all dead. They're right here.
Because even in those chupacabra, there were puncture wounds, right? Or there was some sort of violence on the body.
Exactly. So that's why people assumed that it had been attacked by a vampire, things like that. So the hunter went back and reported it and said, hey, I don't know what's going on here. So Fish and Wildlife came out, and they didn't know what to make of it. It was a genuine mystery. So again, no reported animals, predatory animals in the area other than are normally there. The first thought was that it was a lightning strike. So, and again, lightning strikes are not that uncommon, certainly here in New Mexico. But how did over 100 of them get struck by lightning?
Right.
I mean,
that's got to be a huge. Because you said, too, another thing that they discovered just based on the sort of the time of decomposition, this wasn't over a long period of time that this happened.
Exactly.
This was a relatively short amount of time that all these animals died.
Right. Yeah. So the pathologist came out, and, it's not like one of them died last week and these were just found today, and one of them died this morning. The other one's in the process of dying. They all died within, they were thinking like 24 hours of each other.
Wow. Because
again, as you said, they're in the same stage of decomposition. This is one that's, there's one that's a quarter mile away and there's one that's right here. How did they die at the same time?
Right.
So again, genuine mystery, freaking people out. I wrote about it for Discovery, and nobody could figure it out. And so, as we talked about before, when people can't figure it out, conspiracies come in.
Yep.
So, I'm following this sort of thing, and I'm assuming, again, it was unsolved at the time that I wrote about it, but I was figuring science has a pretty good track record of solving things. Not always, but for the most part, science has a pretty good track record. That's kind of what they do. But meanwhile, conspiracies are going everywhere. So the question is, okay, what is it? So obviously, you think dead animals, New Mexico, chupacabras. Aliens. Why would aliens come across the universe to kill 100 elk and then
just disappear?
Right.
Yeah.
Just to see if they could do it?
Right.
What sort of sadistic bastards are they, right? So again, I didn't think it was chupacabras. I knew it wasn't chupacabras. I didn't think it was aliens because that didn't make any sense. But then the question is, okay, well, was it some sort of like fraud? Was it like some sort of like economic thing? Right? Did the rancher, maybe they were insured, but I'm thinking that doesn't make sense either. Like, why would you kill 100 of your own elk?
And that's a big job too for a rancher to undertake within a 24-hour period.
Yeah,
that's not.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. And besides that, how did they do it?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just
especially with no violence, again, because there's not bullet holes.
Yeah, right.
There's no outward trauma that you can see.
So then the other theory that emerged was fracking. There was a lot of concern about fracking, what's doing to the environment, to the water table. So the best I could get out of it was that fracking had maybe brought up dangerous water.
Okay.
That the elk had all drank.
Okay.
Which I guess is, fracking does involve water injection, so that's not. But here's the thing: so Fish and Wildlife had actually taken samples of the stream where they had drunk, and there was nothing toxic in there. So that was the other explanation: was okay, well, if it was some natural cause or disease, then where was it?
Right.
So finally, Fish and Wildlife said, we found it. We figured it out. And the answer was that it was a neurotoxin. It was an algae bloom. But basically, so there's if water sits long enough, and especially like stable, stagnant water, so it wouldn't necessarily form in a running river or stream. But if you have water, for example, that's in a water tank,
Right.
you're seeing where I'm going with this, and the animals drink out of it, it can create a neurotoxin that can basically paralyze the organs, the lungs and heart and things like that. In this case, the elk had suffocated.
Wow.
So what happened was that they had drunk this antitoxin A, neurotoxin, which is also dangerous to people as well. And that explained why all of them in this one group had the same effects. It also explained why they'd all died around the same time, because they'd all drunk around the same time.
Drinking around the same time. Wow.
Anyway, so that's, again, it's a case of where it's just it's a weird story.
Mm-hmm.
You can see why it sort of would have gone viral. And you can also see why conspiracy theories would have popped up over them.
Yeah.
And then again, at the end of the day, science found an answer. So that's what it was.
Yeah, and it may not be as sexy as a conspiracy theory, but it definitely makes a lot more sense. I know we're over, and I know we got to wrap things up. Before we do, because you had mentioned it's, and you can find more of these stories and more in Mysterious New Mexico, which is one of the many books that you have written, Ben. If we want to get that, and I highly recommend people get it. It is a fascinating read, a lot of interesting stories. Where do we get your books? Where can we find you online?
I always encourage people to go to your local independent bookstore. They're fewer and fewer these days, sadly. Bookworks on Rio Grande, Treasure House in Old Town, Page One. If you have to go to Amazon, it's available there, or the UNM Press website. And yeah, I'm around. I'm still on the Facebooks, even though, because I'm too lazy to get on the other platforms. At least as of now, I don't know if they keep annoying me, I may drop out of there. But I'm around about. I have a column for Skeptic Inquirer Science Magazine. I have a podcast, Squaring the Strange, which you mentioned. Thank you. So yeah, I'm around and about.
Fantastic. And of course, we're going to have you back for more of these, because you are a treasure trove of all of these stories. Ben, thanks for coming back and keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, guys, if you want more information on this episode or more of New Mexico Strange, just head over to KRQE.com. We'll see you next time.